This is the story of a forest that turned blood red overnight, and nearly 40 years later. In the early hours of April 26, 1986, reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. It remains, to this day, the worst nuclear accident in human history. Just 2 kilometers from the reactor stood a pine forest. Within days, something happened to it that no one initially understood. Within days, the pine needles began to turn a deep reddish-brown color. Scientists later confirmed the radiation dose had been so muted. Within a week, an area of roughly 10 square kilometers of forest was dead, standing, and glowing an unnatural rust-red color. The nearby city of Pripyat, home to nearly 50,000 people, wasn't evacuated until 36 hours after the explosion. Residents were told they would return in 3 days. They were never allowed back. Pripyat remains abandoned to this day. Soviet authorities attempted to bury the entire Red Forest, bulldozing the dead trees and burying them in trenches to contain the radioactive contamination. But new trees grew back in the same contaminated soil. According to every scientific expectation, 4 decades later, scientists expected to find a dead zone. What they found instead defied every prediction. Gray wolves, wild boar, lynx, and even rare species of eagle now roam this exclusion zone in numbers higher than almost anywhere else in Europe. With no human activity for 40 years, the exclusion zone has become, paradoxically, one of the largest unofficial wildlife sanctuaries on the continent. The radiation, however, never disappeared. In certain pockets of the forest, levels remain high enough to be lethal within a short period of unprotected exposure.
The readings are spiking. We have critical levels here.
The paperwork doesn't match the cargo manifest. Until this is resolved, the gate remains closed.
Officially, the reason given is safety. But some scientists who have worked in the zone suggest there may be findings from recent surveys that have never been made public. Their permit allowed them to go further into the zone than any research team in over a decade, into an area simply marked on old Soviet maps as Sector 0. Following the strongest readings, the team reached a small clearing that appeared on none of their satellite imagery or historical survey maps. At the center of the clearing, the soil itself looked different, darker, almost scorched, though no fire had ever been recorded in this part of the zone.
At the exact center of the clearing, the Geiger counter stopped registering any reading at all, not 0, but no signal whatsoever.
The corrupted files and radiation data from Sector 0 were sent to an independent nuclear physics lab for analysis. What they found only deepened the mystery.
Look at the pattern here. It's perfectly rhythmic, repeating every 4.2 seconds. We've never seen radiation behave like this before.
The leading official theory suggests an undiscovered pocket of nuclear fuel debris buried during the original 1986 cleanup. It's a plausible explanation. Buried fuel debris has shifted before in other parts of the exclusion zone, but it doesn't explain everything the team recorded. A second theory, discussed far less publicly, points to old Soviet military records suggesting experimental equipment may have been. Those records have never been declassified. Requests to review them have been denied for over 3 decades, long before this recent expedition ever took place. Why would documents from an experiment predating a nuclear disaster still be considered classified 4 decades later? Until then, Sector 0 remains sealed, marked on official maps simply as a restricted zone. One of the researchers on the original team agreed to share a short audio recording made just before the expedition was shut down.
Standing in that clearing, it didn't feel abandoned. It felt like something there was still active, like it was waiting.
As of this recording, the follow-up expedition has still not been approved. Officials cite ongoing safety assessments. No timeline has been given. In this micro-environment, the struggle for survival is constant. The scarab must move quickly before the morning sun arrives. This file remains open. Sector 0 stays sealed. And somewhere beneath the red...
We may never know what's really beneath that clearing, but we want to know what you think it is. Leave your theory below.